Hello! So, I have heard your demands, and from what I can gather, you want to make one of these bad boys. So, this is a tote bag that I made out of scrap yarn, and you can tell that it's made out of scrap yarn because the pattern doesn't make sense and the colors don't make sense, and nothing about it really makes that much sense. But this is a very spacious bag, and I don't really care about stretching out my crochet bags and stuff, so it is quite stretched out. But let me tell you when you can fit your entire life in here. I kind of use this as my current project bag, and it can hold so many different skeins of yarn. It can hold my books, it can even hold like 2 laptops, it can hold a bunch. I mean, it will start to look a little weird because it'll be stretched out, and obviously if it's overfilled then it's gonna look kind of weird. However, this is such a good bag, let me tell you what. So I'm going to teach you guys how to make it today. I kind of flubbed and lost the pattern for this granny square right here. I found it on this obscure Pinterest thing, and I only saw one of them, and it's called either a sunny or sunburst one, but whenever you look that up, what usually comes up is the classic sunflower granny square, which would also work in this bag, but I like this one a lot. But for this video, I'm gonna teach you how to make one of these granny squares out of this book right here. This book is actually amazing. So it has so many different granny squares. I'm not exactly sure where you can get it, probably on Amazon. This was a gift, anything about it other than it's called the Ultimate Granny Square Sourcebook, and I really like it, and I'm going to teach you how to make this square right here. It's called the Carnation Granny Square. I think Carnation Garden Granny Square right here. I'm gonna have a photo of the actual pattern if you really just need the pattern and don't want to hear me give you a tutorial on how to make it. But if you do, however, want my guidance and expertise, then stick around and I will give you a step-by-step tutorial on how to do this, because sometimes the written pattern is a little confusing, at least to me. I might just be dumb, I don't know. But these are what the squares will look like. They're very cute. I super like how they turned out. However, they take a lot of time to make each one. Each of these granny squares took me an hour to make. So I'm going to supplement it with just normal granny squares. So I hope that that's okay, and I hope the outcome will be about the same in quality that I want it to be. But yeah, that's the plan. I'm also planning on making these straps a bit better. I kind of was over the project when I was finishing it, so these bag straps they're sturdy, but they're pretty thin, and I just kind of don't like them too much, so we're gonna do something a little different. The plan for this video is to show you how to construct the architecture of a bag like this, how to do this granny square, and I'll also teach you how to make just a normal granny square as well. I mean, you probably already know how to make it, so if you don't, I'll teach you how to make this too. I'll teach you how to join them together. I'll teach you how to sew the bag together to give it that spacious look, and I will show you how to make the straps. I'm also planning on lining this bag. Part of the reason why this original bag is so stretchy is because it doesn't have any lining in it, so the yarn stretches out. You may or may not like that. For this bag, I'm going to line it, and honestly, I'm gonna show you what I do, but don't take the advice from me because I'm not good at sewing. I'm just kind of playing it by ear, and I don't have a sewing machine. I don't have anything. I'm just gonna hand sew it, and it's gonna look pretty bad, I think, and it's just gonna be the hodgepodge way I do it. There's a million resources out there on how to line a bag professionally, so I would highly recommend for that part going to a different video, but I'll show you what I do anyway, just in case you want to suffer with me, because I really don't like hand sewing. However, another thing to note about this book, if you use the recommended hook size with the yarn, the granny squares are going to look really big and spacious. I would downsize the hook significantly, and I'll show you what I mean in the tutorial section, but just keep that in mind, because whenever I made some granny squares from this book, they didn't turn out the way I wanted to and how they kind of look here, and so I just downsized the hook kind of significantly, and that helped a lot, and it makes the granny squares a lot tighter and everything like that. So I will put a chart right here on how many squares you need of each piece and the general graph, but for these fancy squares you only need 6 of them. So I significantly downgraded the amount of like hard work you'll have to do, but also it means that there's not going to be as many like pretty little squares visible in the final piece. So feel free to do actually whatever you want because it's your bag. I'm just use me as a jumping off point that you can do whatever you want. That's how I use tutorials anyway. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into how to make these Carnation Garden Granny Squares. Welcome to my desk yet again. So, sorry that the tripod setup is so scuffed. I don't have an official tripod yet. So, okay. Here is what we're doing today. Feel free to pause to read this if you want, or I will provide a screenshot. I really like this book because, well, for one, it's very beautifully made with all the photography in it and everything, but also it has a chart and then the written instructions as well. But I have it memorized, so we'll just do it that way. So basically what I was saying earlier about the hook sizes, this is the recommended hook size for my yarn. It's a 5.5 millimeter. This is the hook that I use, 3.75 millimeter. Like, I downsize quite a bit, and that's what gives it a more tighter appearance. So anyway, to start off, we're going to make a magic ring, which quite frankly, if you don't know how to make a magic ring, you should look up a different video because I'm not good at explaining it, but I will just do it real slowly here. Just so you know, to make a regular slip knot, you tie the yarn around this way, but for a magic ring, you go here. So tie it around twice, hold it like this with these 2 fingers, take your hook, go under the first yarn, and hook the second, twist it a little bit, then take the yarn again, and basically make a chain. And there's your magic ring, and then this is the part you pull on. So first off, we're going to make our first chain. So this chain 2, and that counts as your first double crochet. And the beginning is quite like a granny square basically, so we're gonna make 2 more double crochets. And that will be our first little petal here. Then we're going to chain 1. Usually you chain 2, but we're going to only chain 1. Then we're going to make 3 double crochets like so. So here's our first cluster, chain 1 is right here, and then our second cluster. Then we're going to chain 1 yet again. And then we're going to make another cluster of 3 double crochets just in this magic ring here. There we go. And then I'm just going to pull this a little bit. So then we are going to chain 1, and then we have 3 petals and we need 4 to round it out. So we're going to make our last cluster of 3 double crochets. So this beginning part is quite like a normal granny square. So there's our last cluster there. You can see our first cluster, second cluster right here, third cluster right here, fourth cluster right there. We have to complete it out. So we chain 1 and do a slip stitch to the second chain that we made at the very beginning. So here's our first chain, here's our second chain right there. So we're going to just slip stitch that, pull to tighten, chain 1, cut your yarn, and pull up. So here is our beginning part right here. Okay, so that is the beginning part. Now we are going to do these little petals right here. So get whatever color you want. I use this Caron 1 pound in pale green. What you do is join your yarn to any one of the chain ones that we made prior. Then we are going to join our yarn like so. And then we're going to chain 7, all right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay? So then in the second loop from the hook, so we have this one, go into the second one, and we're going to single crochet. Then we're going to do a half double crochet in the next chain. Then we are going to make double crochets until the last one. So we're just double crocheting down the line. Until we hit this last one, which you might have to pull because that's our start. We're going to do a half double crochet in that last one. So with the different stitch lengths, it kind of makes a petal shape. But it's going to get really curly, and to be quite frank, this is one of the trust the process type of granny squares. So anyway, we are going to slip stitch into that space that we've been working, and then we're going to repeat this again, so we'll have 2 petals in each corner. So we're going to chain 7 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then from the second loop from the hook, we're going to do a single crochet, the next one a half double crochet. Then we are going to do double crochets all the way down until the very last one. Okay. Then we are going to half double crochet in the very last one. There we go. Then now it's kind of dangling like this, so we need to slip stitch into that chain space again. So this chain space is going to be quite busy, but that's how it is. So this is what one of the corners look like with our 2 petals. Then we are going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And make sure that you get into the next chain space. Don't go in between any of this. Just count 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to be in this next chain 1 space, and we're going to repeat the same thing. So we always start with a slip stitch that doesn't count as a stitch. Then we chain 7 and then repeat this process. Then chain 3, and we're going to do that into each of the corners. All right, so I'm going to speed it up and get back to you when at the very end here. We have our 8 petals. Make sure that you have 2 coming out of each one, because I've definitely messed that up before and had 1 and then had to undo it, so whatever. So here's our last one. I've already slip stitched into that chain space. So we're gonna do our last chain 3 together here. Then we're going to slip stitch into the first stitch of our very first chain. So that's just right here. We're gonna just insert our hook and slip stitch, chain 1, and fasten off there. And then that might happen where it kind of goes loosey-goosey like that. So just do that, just pull on this starting string right there, and it should tighten back up. So yeah, should now, this is what I call the spider stage, and it could be a lot curlier than this. I've just been flattening it out. So next, I use 2 greens. Here's a completed one for reference. I'm using the lighter green, and then we'll use the darker green, but we're just going to be doing this part next, so whatever color you choose for that, this is what we're doing next. So we're going to join our light green yarn to any of these chain 3 spaces between our little flower petals. And then we're going to join our yarn and chain 2. Then we are going to do a half double crochet right next to it. And this will be as if we did 2 double crochets next to each other. So next we're going to chain 5. Okay, then we're going to treble crochet 1, 2, 3 into this chain space here between the 2 petals in the chain space. Okay? Right, like so. Then we're going to chain another 5. And then do 2 half double crochets into these chain 3 spaces between the petals. And that's it for this round. We just repeat that all the way around. And make sure that your petals are on the outside because they will get tucked out like this, but it's easy, just plop it right back and we continue. So I'm going to do it one more time for you guys. So we're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we're going to treble crochet into the chain space, but between the 2 flower petals. Like so. Then we're going to chain 5 again. Okay, then we're going to do 2 half double crochets in the chain 3 space like this. Okay, make sure that your petals are pointed out. So I'm going to continue with this and I'll meet you back when we're ready to join it for the end of this round. Okay, so we're at our last bit here. I've already chained 5, and what we're going to do is slip stitch into the first chain, or the second chain that we made, but it might be a little hard to pick out, but just join it the best you can and it won't look too weird. I'm gonna struggle here for a little bit though, apparently. Got it. So then we're going to complete our slip stitch there, like so. Chain 1 and fasten off as usual. So this is what it should look like now. Quite a mess, however it will look good in the future, I promise. So now grab your next color. For me it's this dark green. And also all of these yarns are just from my stash I'm trying to get rid of. So I feel like this is Red Heart Super Saver yarn. And the others, I don't know, it's just kind of what I have laying around. So just keep that in mind. I'm kind of using this as a stash buster project. So yes, we're going to grab this. And so we are going to be working a bunch of stitches into the top of these treble crochets. So you want to put your hook through here, and this is where we're going to be working a bunch of stitches. So grab your darker green yarn, join it, and I am going to chain 5 to count as a treble crochet. 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we're going to do 3 more treble crochets. Okay, like this. We're gonna chain 1. Then we're going to do another cluster of 4 treble crochets. So you should have a cluster of 4, chain 1, cluster of 4. Okay, next, don't forget this step, it's very important, and I've definitely accidentally skipped it and had to redo this entire round again. But we need to do something with these petals, right? So we're going to join our yarn to the top of a petal that is the closest one right here, and single crochet into it like so, and that will it will straighten out the petal here. So after that we're going to chain 3, and then I believe it's called a bobble stitch. Yes, it's called a bobble stitch, 5 double crochet bobble stitch. So basically we're going to do half of a double crochet, so that's half of a double crochet, and I'm not going to complete it. I'm going to yarn over and do another half completed double crochet, and we're going to do this 5 times. So we have 2, we're going to do a third one, a fourth one, and make sure to kind of stretch your stitches a little tall, and then finally the 5th one here. Okay, so that's 5 double crochets on our hook, yarn over and pull through all of them like so, and then chain 3. Then we are gonna go to this next petal here and single crochet to the top of it like that. So this is what it looks like so far. Then we're going to do another repeat of this little corner bit over here. So we're gonna do 4 treble crochets, okay, that's our 4. Then we're going to single crochet once, then do another 4 treble crochets all into the same area there. Okay, like so. Then we are going to do a single crochet to the top of the next petal here. Then we're going to chain 3, like that. Then we are going to do our 5 stitch bobble right here. Oh, and we're just doing it into the middle of these 2 double crochets. So like that. Just put your hook wherever it'll fit, stretch your stitch up tall, and then there's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then yarn over, pull through all of those on all those loops on your hook. Then you chain 3, and then single crochet to the top of the next petal here, and then repeat the 4 treble crochets, chain 1, 4 treble crochets on this corner as well, and I'll meet you back when we've completed it. Alrighty, so we have all of our little pieces, and so now we need to join our yarn to the last or the fifth chain that we originally did at the beginning of the row here. So might be a little bit of a struggle, but try to get your hook in there. And then complete your slip stitch like so. Chain one and fasten off as we do. And here is our second to last round of what it should be looking like. So now you need to grab the last color, which will be your final border piece. Now I have done a slight change to the original pattern. The original pattern has you do treble crochets along all of the outside, and I didn't really like the way that looked, so I changed it to double crochets, but feel free to do the original treble crochet. I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's just a personal preference thing, you know? So I'm going to do our double crochet version. So you're just going to join your yarn, and remember these are all every time we've done a corner, it's been a chain one, and for this last border here, it's actually going to change and be a chain two for these corner bits. So just keep that in mind. This corner here is a chain one, this corner here is also a chain one, but the final border is going to be a chain two, so just keep that in mind. So, you're going to join our yarn to any of the corners that you desire. We're going to do a chain two to act as our first double crochet. Do another double crochet. So this is going to be like 2 double crochets in this corner section here. Chain two, as I just was telling you about. And then we're going to do another 2 double crochets here. So here's our classic little corner piece. Now for the rest, now for these stitches here, this cluster of 4 from the previous row, we're not going to just do double crochets on top of them. We're going to be doing front post double crochets. I couldn't remember if they were front or back post, but we're going to be doing front post double crochet. So that might sound a little spooky if you've never done it before, but it's actually quite simple. So we're gonna yarn over, and instead of inserting our hook into any of these spaces, we're going to insert the hook back of this treble crochet like so, yarn over and pull that through, and then complete your double crochet as normal. So that is a front post double crochet, and we're going to do one for each of these sections here. So yarn over, put your hook in the back, yarn over, pull through, like that. And that's how you do front post double crochet. So then we're going to do a normal double crochet on this single crochet that we did. Just insert your hook normally like so, and then we're going to do 3 double crochets into the top of these little bobble stitches here. So 1, 2, 3, like that. Then we're going to do a double crochet on the top of this single crochet that we did in the previous row like so. And then we're going to do our 4 front post double crochets on these 4 stitches right here. So yarn over, insert your hook in the back of that stitch like that. Same for right here. Same for this one. And same for this one. Then we're going to do our classic, the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet, all in this chain space here. So there's our 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets like that. Now we're just going to repeat that all the way around, and I will meet you here when we fasten off. Now we have the border all done. We're just going to, as normal, slip stitch into this last one here. Chain 1 and fasten off. And here you go. Here is the completed Carnation Garden Square from that book. And you can just go ahead and weave in all the ends and everything. So for the particular pattern that I'm doing, you'll need 6 of these. And so now, next, I am going to be teaching you how to do the just plain granny square in case you've never made one before. Alright, so in case you don't know, I'm going to teach you how to make a granny square. There's a bunch of tutorials out there on how to do that already, but I kind of want this to be a bit more comprehensive, so I'm going to just quickly teach you. But if you don't like the way I taught it, or, you know, feel free to go to a different tutorial because there's a bunch out there. So first of all, we're going to start with a magic ring. You're going to loop the yarn around twice, like this, and hold it with your thumb. Then you're going to take your hook under the first one and hook the second string here, twist, and then hook this little string right here, pull through, which it's going to be slightly tricky. There you go. Slide that off, and there you go, there's your magic ring. Now we are going to chain 2. 1, 2. And that's going to count as a that is going to count as a double crochet. Then we're going to do 2 more double crochets. Like so. So this is going to be known as a cluster, and it's just 3 double crochets together. Okay? So now we're going to do a corner, and this will make sense once you understand the pattern. Once you get the pattern, it's doing granny squares. You can do granny squares in your sleep, okay? So then we're going to chain 2 for a corner, and then do a cluster into the magic ring again. So, as I said, a cluster is just 3 double crochets here. Okay, now we're going to do 2 more for another corner. We're going to do a cluster again. What we're aiming for here is 4 little leaves and 4 little corners in between them. So we're going to do another cluster after another chain 2 right here. And our last one here, chain 2, and our 4th little cluster here, which is just 3 double crochets. Now we have 4 clusters, 1, 2, 3, 4, and only 3 corners. So we're going to chain 2 for a corner, and then slip stitch the yarn into the second chain from the chain that we did. You might have to work to get it in there a little bit. There you go. Okay, then we pull the magic ring tight, There we go. So that's round 1. Now we're going to move on to round 2. We're going to slip stitch until we hit a chain space. So right here, here's a chain space. There you go. So now the pattern is when we're working into a chain space, we're going to do 1 cluster, chain 2 for another corner, and another cluster, and that will be our corner regiment. So this will start making sense when we have more rows. So we're going to chain 2 for our first, that counts as our first double crochet, double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. We have 3 double crochets as a cluster here, chain 2, and a cluster of double crochets here. So now we're going to work directly into the next chain space and repeat this with no chaining, because this right here is in a corner. So we're hitting another corner right here though, and so we're going to do another cluster. Chain 2, another cluster, like that. Then we're going to just repeat that for the last 2 corners, alright? So we've done our clusters, right? And so now it's time to join this row to the first of our previous row. So we're just going to slip stitch into the second chain right here, like we did before, right? So here we go. And slip stitch. There you go. There's your second row complete. For this I'm doing 5 rows, so let's move on to the third row. So as we did before, we're going to slip stitch till we find a chain space. Should always be just right there. And look, we're on a corner again, so you know what that means. We're going to chain 2, that counts as a double crochet. And we're going to do 2 more double crochets, chain 2 for our corner, and then do another cluster here. See? Okay, so now we have our corner, but now, unlike before, we have things to work into we have spaces to work into that aren't corners. So this is a corner right here, but this right here isn't. So we're not going to chain, we're not going to do anything. We're just simply going to go directly into putting a cluster in this chain space right here. So you don't have to put your hook into here or anything like that, just the chain space itself is fine, okay? So we're just going to pop a cluster right in this chain space. Okay, now we're going to go directly into a corner here. So you know that's a cluster, chain 2 cluster. So we're going to do that. There we go, chain 2. And there you go, there's another corner little cluster there. So now we have another spot where it's just a chain space here, so we're just going to have a cluster here like normal, no chaining or anything, just go directly into a double crochet cluster here. See? Now there's a corner right here, so we're going to do our little corner cluster, and I will meet you back here. Okay, so now this row is complete here, and all we have to do is slip stitch it to the beginning chain 2 that we did, like we have all the other rows. There we go. Okay, so now that was our 3rd row complete, we're going to our 4th row, and that's probably going to be the last one I film because the pattern will be just repeating after that. So, as we did before, we're going to slip stitch to an open chain space, which will always be a corner if you're doing it like this, like the way I'm teaching you. So here we go, here's our chain space. Oh look, it's a corner. We're going to do our cluster, but with our chain 2. There we go, there's our cluster. Chain 2. There. Now, this is where the pattern becomes useful, okay? So here we have 2 chain spaces right here, and then a corner. So we're going to do exactly what we did on the other row, put 1 cluster in each of these respectively, and then do a corner, our corner regiment over here. And so every row you go up, you will have 1 more chain space here, and that's the only difference between the rows. You'll just have 1 more cluster, or 1 more chain space to crochet into for the next one. So that's the whole pattern, and once you make 1 or 2, how many it takes, you will see the pattern eventually, and these granny squares will be pretty simple after that. So cluster, we're just going to go straight into it. And then there we go, there's our 2 clusters, and then we have a chain space corner here, and so that's where we're going to do our cluster, chain 2 for a corner, and then another cluster. Our chain 2. There we go, there's our corner. So if you've ever made a border to a blanket or anything, this, oops, I forgot one. So if you've ever made a blanket border or something, this type of do something, chain 2, do something is pretty common to make corners. So if that makes anything connect for you, that's great. So there's our 2 chain spaces again. We're just going to do a cluster into each of them like we have been doing. There we go. Then we're just going to do it again. So that we're back to our corner. So this pattern just repeats, and for my squares here, I'm going to do 1 more. It's going to be a 5. So for this, I'm going to do 1 more row. It's going to be a 5-row granny square that I'm going to use for this bag. I'm going to finish up this granny square and then show you the finished result. Okay, so that was my last row. I'm in the process of chain 1. Fastening off. And this is what it looks like. So, our 2 types of squares are these garden squares and these regular granny squares. Now, I might have been able to get away with doing these granny squares with a bit of a larger hook size, but right now they're just a little bit, these are just a little bit smaller than these. However, it should work out fine. There's only a one stitch difference between the sides. This one has one less than this one, but that's okay. We can do some fancy shenanigans to make it match, and it won't be noticeable when the whole bag is assembled, so it will be completely fine. But now I'm going to show you how to join them together. And I've already joined a bunch of mine together just to get a feel for it beforehand. Next, I'm going to teach you how to join them. Just make sure that all of your ends are woven in before that, because it will make this process way easier. So before you start, all of these ends should be woven in. All of these ends should be woven in. It's a lengthy process, but it's worth it, trust me. The join that I've chosen is to use the same yarn as this linen color here, and I'm using a surface level slip stitch join, which looks really nice to me. It's flat, and I just learned it. I learned it from Hooked by Robin. Her tutorials are amazing, probably a million times better than mine, so I really encourage you to go look at hers first. But I will go through how to do this. It is quite finicky, and it's the handling position looks kind of weird on camera, for me at least. So if you're confused at any point, pop onto that tutorial because she explains it very well. So that's my little disclaimer on that. And so then I will see you in the next clip where we're going to join these. So when you're sewing together this pattern, this is the guide that you should follow. These are the sides of the bag, and these are the other sides of the bag, and this is the bottom. So it's kind of like a box without a top. You're gonna just sew. What we're worried about right now is just sewing these bits together and then stop, and then we're going to do probably a different join to do these sides, but basically we're going to sew these sides together and then sew these sides together so it will like make a bag. So what I'm focused on right now, oh, and I should probably mention these X's are the flowery granny square, these, and the blank ones are these. So what I did was made this pattern only include 9 squares like this because they do take quite a while, and the rest of them are the quicker and smaller these ones, plain granny squares. I don't know how that will look in the end, but we'll just have to find out together, I suppose. But yeah, right now I'm going to do one of these with you so you can see how to join these and these together. Alright? Okay, so this is how we're going to join together one of the sides of the bag. While I am in, like, I set my camera down for tutorial mode, not all of this will fit in, so I'm just going to do a quick little overview here. We are going to join this large one first, and then we're going to go back and do these. Alright, we're going to start on this side, and I'm going to start by just joining these two together. So I just want to remind you guys that when you're joining with this particular join, you should consider upscaling your hook. So this is what I have been using. It is a F5, or as I like to identify them as 3.75 millimeter hook. And then while I'm joining with this particular join, I upgrade to a 4.5 millimeter. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is have make a slip knot without putting it on your hook quite yet. Alright, now we are going to always start with the furthest one from you, and I'm going to stick it in the first hook here. So usually if the stitch counts were equal, we would do this one right here, but since it's not equal, I have to do some shenanigans to make them a little bit more equal, so we're just doing this one right here, and then here we're going to do the further one back. But you want to always be inserting your hook like downwards like that, because we're going to be pulling the loop up. Then we're going to take the slip knot like so, tighten it up, and pull it through these two, like so. So this joint is kind of awkward handling, but I think the end results are worth it, but I just haven't figured out how to do it beautifully yet, so that's why I would suggest going over to Hooked by Robin's channel, because she does it way more eloquently than I do. But anyways, here we go. We're gonna find the next loop, so this one right here, insert your hook. Then we're gonna find the next one right here, insert your hook. And then take your string. So you see how I said it kind of runs underneath everything. But, yeah. So, there you go. Pull through all those. Okay, next. Through this one right here. And through this one right here. So we're always doing the loops that are closest inwards. So for this one, it's the back loop. This would be the back loop if you're holding it upright, but I guess it's the front loop of this one and the back loop of this one. Yeah. So we're always gonna do the front loop of this one as it's facing us and the back loop of this one as it's facing us. So yeah. There we go. Just slip, stitch, pull through all those loops. And then move on. So then we have this loop right here, this loop right here, and then just continue on like that. So you can see that it kind of makes this little slip stitch on the top, and it's completely flat, and I think it looks cute. And I like the outlook of it, it's just a bit annoying to do, so yeah. Okay, so here we are at the end here. I'm going to just finish this loop here. And, yeah. So now we're ready to put another two on. So the pattern I have it kind of checkerboarding. You can, obviously, you can do whatever you want, but that's just what I'm doing for this pattern. And so now, there's no fancy anything for this. We're just going to continue on like it was just part of it all along. Just go to the closer one to the edge there. And the further one for this one, since there's one difference, a one stitch difference. So there we go. And when we come down this way, there'll be a little bit something different, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But basically, since we've joined that, we're going to just continue on our merry way like we had before. Like that. And hopefully you have the hang of it, and kind of see how it works. I really like the end result. It is way more annoying than just doing a slip stitch, a different way of doing a slip stitch or a single crochet or something like that. But I like the way it turns out, and I think it's pretty secure. So, there we go. I'm just gonna continue on down the line. Alright, so we've got this one line going through this whole thing, and now we need to join these two together. So we're just gonna turn it on its side like this, and start here and join over here. So this is where the position and handling gets a little bit more awkward, but that's okay. So like before, we're going to start with a slip stitch, or we're going to start with a slip knot without putting it on your hook quite yet. And we want to put that below the work like this, so it's just kind of sitting right there ready for us. So then, we're going to take our hook and join like we have before, like so, and like so. So this is normal so far. Then we're going to grab this that we have and put it through. Pop that on our hook. Tighten it up. And then we are going to pull through. There we go. So then I usually get this tail out of the way. So now it should be underneath, so if you pull this up, it should get caught right there. That's completely fine. This is going to get slightly awkward at some point, so just so you know. So now, we're doing what we did before, picking up this loop, and picking up this loop, and slip stitching it. Like so. Then we're going to do the same thing. We are just going to work this down the row. So we're right up here to this little intersection here. So I've already made the yarn go out the back here. So we're just gonna look for these two areas right here and scoop those up. It's gonna be a little tight. And so then there's that last stitch there. Then you're going to chain one to get over that hump. And then on the other side, you can put the hook through that little hole right there. And then do the same on the other side. Just like so. There you go. So then you're just gonna keep going down the lane. And now it's just like the other one. All the other times that we've done this, right? So that's how you get over that little hump there. So we're gonna do the same thing for the rest of that and the same thing for this. So I will be right back to show you all. Alright, so after you've joined everything together, it should be like this. So in total, you're going to need 6 garden squares and I believe 13 regular squares here. So this is going to be the shape of the bag. These are going to like go up and form the outsides of the bag. This is the bottom of the bag and these are the other sides of the bag, right? Okay, so when you join pieces together, make sure that you're joining in the right way. So make sure that the right sides are facing the right way out and it remains consistent. So you can just look for the little piece that you crocheted and it should be good because the other side obviously looks like that. Right, so now instead of doing a join like this, I feel like this works better if it's flat. I think the seams here will be a bit more sturdy if you do a single crochet or a slip stitch. I'm going to do a single crochet just because it's a little bulkier and I think that it will work out better. But give me a second and we will start this whole joining process on this seam right here. I'm going to continue joining with the bigger hook, the 4.5 millimeter. To do this, we are no longer going to do this flat join here. I'm going to join my yarn here at the side. Just put my hook through both front and back loops here. Grab my yarn. Then do the same for this side. There you go. Take your yarn and then just join that. And I'm going to do one chain here. So basically what I'm going to do is just go down the line and single crochet these two sides together. So this is slightly different than what we did before, but I think that this join will work for the seams that we're trying to do here. So, like so. Just try to get your hook through all of them and then single crochet. You can slip stitch if you want. Do whatever type of join you're most comfortable with. I'm just showing you what I'm doing here. So I like the single crochet join. So yes, I am fully aware that this single crochet will be on the outside of the bag. So if you don't want that, I would suggest doing it the other way. If you would like flipping them around and doing it that way, but I don't mind this being here because it's going to be on a like 90-degree fold. So I do not mind this single crochet edge showing. But just keep that in mind when you're choosing how to join your bag together. Okay, so we're at this little place here now. So I'm just going to fortify this by doing a single crochet there and then just kind of fitting my hook wherever it will fit in here to try to fortify that. And then that's how I'm going to handle those little bits where the single crochet goes, or that's how I'm going to handle those bits right there like that. Okay, so the bag should look like this now with all of these seams all done. So now what we're going to do is to make it actually form into a bag shape. We're going to take these sides and single crochet them together, and then take these sides, single crochet them together, and then do the same on that side. Hopefully you can kind of see what I'm getting at, so it will actually make like a 3D shape. We're gonna get started on that. Okay, so with all the seams done, we should have a full bag like this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a few rows on top here all the way around to just flatten out all of these little bumps here, and then just make the whole bag a tad bit bigger and more fortified. So what we're gonna do is join our yarn and then do a single crochet round all the way around. So we're gonna take this, I'm going to join it at the side here, so if it looks weird then it's just at the side there. So I'm gonna join the yarn, single crochet, and just single crochet all the way around the entirety of the bag here. Now you can do whatever you want here. This is just to fortify it at the top here so it can hold more. But I'm thinking of doing some color switching and adding maybe this yellow or this teal color here and putting it all the way around so it looks a bit prettier, and perhaps a waistcoat stitch, something like that. But yeah, we're just single crocheting all the way around, and so then once you get to a spot where there's a join here, basically just guess and put the single crochets where they fit and try to keep equal spacing between everything. Okay, so the first row of single crochet is done, and I'm gonna go ahead and add another layer of single crochet with this yellow yarn that I used for these little center bits. What I'm going to do is join the yarn to basically where we tied off, and I'm going to actually perform a waistcoat stitch. So that is simply it's a way to mimic a knit stitch. It's pretty easy to pull off, so I'm just going to join the yarn and do the classic chain one. So then I'm going to find, well, this isn't a very good because this is where I joined, so I'm just going to do that one real quick. So basically, normally if you were going to continue doing single crochet, you would put it right here. However, in this case, we want to put it here in between right there. We want to put it right there. So it will kind of lay in between and create the stacking V effect. So here it is again, the next stitch here. Instead of just going here like we normally do, we're going to go right in here. And then complete our single crochet. And as you can see, this V sits right on top of this V, which will create a bit of a knit effect. So So instead of this hole right here like we normally would, we're going to put our hook right here in between these two V's. Like so. So I'm gonna do that all the way around. See? So I'm gonna do that all the way around and meet you back when I'm right here, and I'm going to show you what to do after that. Okay, I'm at the end here, and I'm gonna show you guys how I try to attempt a non-visible join. It's not perfect, but it doesn't leave that little tail sticking out like it does sometimes. So I just go back to front like that, and then I go inside right here, hook it, hook the yarn, pull through, and then I can chain one, fasten it off. And it doesn't look perfect, but it looks a little better than it would have. Okay. So that's our first 2 single crochet rows complete. I think I'm going to do one more in this teal color and then finish off with one more of this linen color. So this part is completely customizable. Do whatever you think looks best for your bag in particular. I just think adding this pop of color will look nice and complement the other colors we got going on there. So I'm gonna get started on this teal row and then I will meet you back. So this is how it's looking so far. I kind of like how it turned out. This is just a nice border to help tie in everything and to have some extra security. So now we're going to move on to the straps. So going to join. So basically where the straps are gonna go are where I've marked out with these little pieces of scrap yarn here. What I basically did is marked the middle of these garden squares up, and that's where the straps are gonna go. They're gonna go like this and then like that. So to do this, I'm going to take our yarn and join it to where all of the other yarn has been joined before. And now we're just going to single crochet. I'm not going to worry about the waistcoat stitch or anything. We're just going to normally single crochet. Until we hit this spot here, our first marker of scrap yarn. You can use normal stitch markers for it, but I just had some scrap yarn laying around and that works too. So now we've hit our marker here. Now how much you chain, how many you chain will determine how long the straps are, and they will stretch a little bit. So I would suggest just figuring out how long you personally want your straps. I'm not sure how long I'm going to make mine yet. Okay, I just did a chain of 80 and I think that's probably long enough. So that's how much I did, and I'm still using my bigger hook here. So now we got that. Make sure the chain is not twisted in any way because that's important. And we are going to join it to where our next stitch marker is right here. So just do a little bit of a slip stitch there, and that's joined. So now we are going to continue our way around until we, with single crochets. So we're just going to continue our way around with single crochets until we hit the next stitch marker over here. So I just single crocheted around from over here. Just continue on, and here's our second stitch marker here. And so we're just going to single crochet into that. And then I am going to go ahead and chain 80 again and connect it over here like we did before. Okay, so I just chained 80 and now I'm going over to our next stitch marker here, making sure the chain is not twisted in any way, slip stitching it on like that, and then continuing to single crochet all the rest of the way around. Okay, so now we're back at the start and I've just kind of joined in the round. It does look a little funky, but it's at the side and no one will notice. So now that we've single crocheted around and have our straps, we need to fortify them so they can actually hold weight. And the way to do that is to slip stitch. So mind you, don't do this too tightly because it will be hard for future rounds, but just slowly and kind of loosely slip stitch into every single stitch so far, and then when you get to where you chained upwards, this is going to be a tricky part, but this is where you're going to slip stitch up the chain as well to form our strap, to fortify our straps. So hopefully you didn't chain too tightly, because we're going to go through the front and back loops like that in every single stitch that we did, and just slip stitch into them. Now this is going to take a while, but that's okay. And slip stitching into them will fortify it, so it will be a bit stronger to actually hold weight of whatever you put into the tote bag. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to just slip stitch into every single one all the way around until we hit here again. So I probably will get back to you on the end of this when I get down here, but just keep working slowly and don't slip stitch too tight because that will make it worse for the next row, okay? Okay, so once you've completed a round all the way around, we're gonna do it a couple more times to make these straps thicker so they can hold better and not stretch as much. So what we're gonna do is continue on, but as you can see, the slip stitch row kind of turns to the side like that, and it'll continue to do so, and it'll just kind of get curly. So I'm not exactly sure how to fix this, except what I'm just going to do is I'm going to slip stitch another row around, but doing back loop only, so it lays more on top instead of continuing to curl to the side, and I'm going to do that all the way around. So it's more like this, and so probably from then on I'm going to continue to do back loop only, and so I'm just going to go around a few times, and feel free to do this until however many rows until you think it's bulky enough, and then we will go from there. Alright, so I did quite a few rows here with the slip stitch and back loop only. I think I did 4 total. And as you can see, that result has a pretty sturdy strap here that won't move too much. And that's how the straps look. And this is how the entire bag is looking so far. I think it looks pretty cute. I like the detail of the seams here being a little thicker so you can kind of tell more shape of it. And I think it's turning out really nice. So, the next thing I want to do is actually line this bag. And so the first step would be to find any fabric that you would like to use for it. I'm using just some fabric that I found at a thrift store, so I will be using that. But basically what we want to do is lay out basically this pattern in the fabric without the different cuts in it, just the full outline, with adding some seam allowance on the sides here so it can be sewn together. I've actually not really done this before. I received a sewing machine recently and I've never used a sewing machine before in my life, so I will be learning alongside you guys as well. I'm going to look at my fabric and see what I've gotten and I will let you know. So I just roughly ironed this, and that's all good. So what I've got going on here is about 21 inches across. This is 16 inches across right here. So my plan is to kind of just cut a strip this way and then figure out the little flaps later or in the next roll. So what I've got going on here is about 11 inches. So that's 11 inches for both sides. That's 22 inches. And this is 6 inches here, I believe, yes. So that's 28 inches that will wrap around the whole thing. But I'm going to do a couple more inches just so I have some wiggle room, and that's all the way up there. I'm gonna do about 30 inches up, and I'm just gonna cut that across and kind of go from there. So, did I mention that I don't know what I'm doing? Because I don't. Right now, I'm cutting the side flaps because the fabric isn't wide enough to fit it all. Then I'm measuring the true measurements, cutting it bigger, so I have some extra fabric to work with when I sew them together. All of this is really messy right now, so if you know how to do it better, then just do that. This machine has given me so much grief. It's not the machine's fault, I just don't know how to sew yet. I figured it out, and I will not be giving you a tutorial on it because I don't know what I'm doing. So basically what I did though is kind of fold it up just like we put the bag. I just sewed up the sides together like this, and I'm going to cut this out. Basically I want the pretty fabric to be on the inside because that's what you're going to see when you open the bag. So basically, if you know how to sew it with a sewing machine, great. If you don't, I would hand sew it and basically just make it into the shape of the bag, and yeah. So I'm going to trim this excess fabric on the side here, and then I am going to figure out how to deal with this edge up here. Then we'll talk about joining it to the actual bag. So basically all that I've done is very poorly, I must say, just kind of folded these seams back and sewed them up like that. So all it is a bag like this. And so what I'm going to do now is basically just take a needle and some embroidery floss and hand sew it to the bag because I am not confident enough on my sewing machine to even attempt that. So yeah. Okay, so basically we have the lining and we have the bag. So I'm just going to go ahead and place the lining inside the bag here. And I'm going to try to like line it up here. Like here, the two sides of the lining. I'm going to try to line them up with the two sides of the side of the bag here so they are consistent. But basically I'm just going to take a regular needle and some embroidery floss and hand sew this on, and I'm going to take the time to pin out where things are supposed to go. So right now I'm just taking the embroidery floss and going in and out to sew the lining of the bag to the side of the bag. Honestly, this doesn't look the best and it's a little bit tedious. However, this is just how I chose to do it because I'm quite frankly frightened of putting my crochet project on a sewing machine right now. But This is the process that I used for the entire bag all the way around, using the little pins to hold each checkpoint in place. So this is how I finish off the bag. So that was a long tutorial, huh? Sorry about that. I will try to make them a little bit more streamlined in the future and try to make them a little less rambly perhaps, but let me know your opinion on that. If you like the longer form or you'd like it to be shortened up, this is the finished bag with the lining and everything. This was the first time I've ever touched a sewing machine, so I'm fully aware that it could look better. However, I think that it looks fine for the purposes of this tutorial, and also I have learned quite a lot that I can deploy next time, and so that I got a lot out of this tutorial, so I hope you did as well. That is the tutorial on this granny square tote bag. I super enjoy it. I think it's very spacious. I hope you like it too if you choose to make it as well. If you do choose to make it, please let me know on Instagram. Here will be my handle right here, and just let me know what you thought about it and give me constructive feedback for the future if you'd like. I would very much appreciate that as well. I'm sorry that I've been gone for so many months. I just, kind of have life stuff going on, but I will try my best to post more consistently now and try to make it more of a habit for you guys to bring you more content. If you have any suggestions of what you'd like to see me do in the future, please put it down in the description. I read all of your comments and respond to most of them, so thank you so much for that. If you liked this tutorial or found it helpful, please like the video and consider subscribing to this channel. It would really mean a lot to me and I would appreciate it a lot. But yeah, that is all for this video. I'll try to keep the outro short as possible since the rest of it sure wasn't. Thank you so much for watching. It means a lot to me, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. Goodbye.